So Grant, where do you see the future of wine in Chile?
No idea. No idea. I mean, it's an interesting exercise they do every 3 years, pretty much. I write the wine section for the Lonely Planet, the Chile guide. So every 3 years they get in touch with me and I sit down and I write essentially a 2-page snapshot of what's happening in the Chilean wine industry right now. So every year, and I just wrote the version for the upcoming guide. And I sat down and I read the previous 2 versions that I'd written, so 3 years ago and 6 years ago. And I write about completely different things every time I do that because there's totally different stuff happening in the industry at the time whenever I come to write it. So I think it's a really positive thing because it shows how dynamic the industry is here and how fast things can change. I mean, for example, 6 years ago I was writing about the sort of explosion in quality Pinot Noir, coastal Pinot Noir vineyards. And then 3 years ago I was writing about sparkling wine starting to happen, and sparkling wine has just gone crazy here in the last 3 years. There's always been lots of cheap sparkling wine in Chile, but the move to making method champenoise, bottle fermented, serious sparkling wine has really just gone crazy in the last 3 years. And as well, apart from that, Movi, so the sort of the groupings of small independent producers, the garagists, if you like, that's gone ballistic in the last 5 or 6 years, and it's made the wine scene so much more interesting here, having those small players making these small batch wines from all over the country. I mean, País has been rediscovered as a grape variety, thanks to Miguel Torres down south. They didn't want País to disappear as a grape variety because it was becoming extinct. So those guys grabbed País and started making sparkling wines and rosés and making some really interesting wines now from País all over the place. Well, down south, but many different producers. And the same thing with Carignan. Suddenly became this new thing, and there's some amazing wine being made out of Carignan. So, yeah, God knows what's going to happen. I mean, natural wines are really starting to take off down south. I'm a little bit skeptical about the natural wine thing in general because most of them aren't very drinkable. But once again, it's a counterpoint to those big guys. It gives people an alternative, and I think it's really important that Chile starts doing new, interesting, different stuff is fantastic. So God knows, I mean, 3 more years, it might be Tanat might be the new thing. I mean, maybe Uruguay will put them out of business and Tanat will be coming from Chile. Who knows? But there's definitely a lot of different things going on right now. And I think with the appearance of all these new, smaller players on the market, it's just diversifying things so much more. So I think the ball's started rolling. It's gained momentum, and I think that's going to keep on happening for the next at least 5 or 10 years.
So Grant, coming from New Zealand, the grape everyone associates with New Zealand is Sauvignon Blanc. You make Sauvignon Blanc here. How has the experience of making Sauvignon Blanc in New Zealand interacted with the terroir of Chile?
Well, I'd say it kind of hasn't, to be honest.
Okay.
I mean, growing up in New Zealand, Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc was the first wine I discovered, and it was the thing that made me, it was, the epiphany moment for me, and it's what got me into wine. So for that, I'm eternally grateful. But by the same token, as most New Zealand winemakers, if they're being frank with you, will tell you that the one thing that no one wants to make any more of in New Zealand as a winemaker is Sauvignon Blanc. Generally, I mean, the wines, they're obviously very characteristic. People can recognize them, in a blind tasting, it's obvious what's from New Zealand. But by the same token, that kind of makes the wines a little bit samey. And that, that really in your face, the cat's pee on a gooseberry bush thing, that thing is quite sort of inherently food incompatible to me. And that's the thing that I think I kind of rebel against as a winemaker. Obviously when I was working in New Zealand, I had to make a lot of Sauvignon Blanc, necessary evil if you like. I do every now and then drink a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. I don't, completely hate the stuff or anything like that. But, I like to drink wine with food generally, and I think that the Marlborough style, the wines are very in your face aromatically, and in the mouth, they tend to not really be there much. I mean, the wines are fresh, but they're very simple, and they're quite dilute as well for the most part. It's really just that sensation of acidity. So they're great aperitif wines, but with food, I don't really like to drink New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc.